I appreciate the time. I'm a huge fan of comedy myself, by the way.
Nice. I got my Funny or Die hoodie over here. I got my comedy project stuff. I'm teaching a class tonight, actually, so should be
Really?
yeah. So I've taught kids improv. I've taught grown-ups improv, grown-up stand-up, grown-up sketch. I was obviously at Funny or Die for the better part of a decade, and
That's
been doing
awesome.
comedy for over 20 years. So yeah, makes me feel
Nice.
old to say that, but it is pretty fun to have spent half my life making other people laugh.
I don't know anything about it. I watch a lot of it though.
Nice.
What do you say to people when they talk about like how you can't teach it? And I go,
So I personally think everything's funny, and my therapist says that's a healthy coping mechanism. But I do think there's comedy in everything. So no, you can't teach people to be funny, but you can say, what do you think is funny, and how do you explain that to other people? I think there are people who are just grumpy and don't see a lot of humor in the world, but I think you can help people learn how to express what they think is funny in a way that's relatable to audiences.
nice. I like it. Half the time, the most interesting stuff is just whenever someone goes off on a tangent. Half the time, it's like, no, there's a there, and it relates to it. I mean, like a big part of like what we studied. I did branding and stuff, but a big part of like when we studied marketing was just like the significance of novelty. It had like an exponential impact on users, right? Like, so, same thing, even just road rage. The fact that it's a surprise, even though like you're kind of in a scenario where you kind of should expect it. It's like, I thought we all understood the rules of the road. So when someone like changes lanes without the blinker, people don't just get mad. They literally will like shoot people over it, right? Like
Yeah.
novelty and surprises elicit an exponential response. And a big part of comedy is just misdirect, right? Talk like Anthony Jeselnik. It's like his whole thing is see if I can do a misdirect on the misdirect, so you can't actually like even though you
Exactly.
think you know where
I'm
I'm
not
going.
being offensive this way. I'm being offensive this way. So you shouldn't be offended. These people can be. And it's like, man, that Jeselnik, he's good at that. Yeah, I think one of the ideas of comedy is called benign violation, where, yeah, if you get too offensive, and something I teach my classes is if you think it's funny, but it makes your audience have the worst day of their week, their month, that's not fun for the audience. You're doing a bad job of comedy. But if you think it's funny and they can laugh along with it, then you nailed it. So that's the benign part of the violation. And the violation part is it's just unexpected. It's hitting you in a way that you're like, oh, you can't do that on television. Dumping a pound of slime on someone's head is just silly. Like they're not getting hurt, but you don't expect it. So yeah. And I've got young kids. So I don't like jokes about like kidnapping or children being injured in whatever way. But now when I do shows, the people I'm performing with will sometimes do that just because they know I'll get a reaction. And it's like, oh, okay, if the audience is laughing, I'm in the wrong here. But like, oof.
Oh, wait, another one, because I've always, what is a tag? They're like, hey, good tag. I'm like, I don't know what a tag is. There's other, you just pointed out that there's other comedy parlance that I have heard a
All
million
sorts of
times and
comedy
never really
parlance. Yeah.
understood.
So depends. A tag could just be like the ending on a joke. In improv, you tag out and how you edit the scenes. And there's whole workshops on how best to edit a scene, meaning like, where's the funniest bit? Where should we cut it off? Because you want to leave the audience wanting more, but you also want to leave on a high laugh. So a good tag could be like a twist on the end, like you were saying, like Jeselnik, or once the joke is done, can you add one more joke onto the end of it? It's like a tag is sometimes how it's referred to. The other thing about comedy is nobody actually knows what they're talking about. And it is just what I teach is what resonates with you. So like, if you think it's funny, keep doing it until the audience understands it. I talk a lot about like Zach Galifianakis live at the Purple
Sure.
Onion.
Yeah.
Before you know who Zach Galifianakis is, it's just weird. And then he does The Hangover, and you're like, oh, yeah, it's a weird character. And you go back and
Yeah.
watch the stand up, and it's hilarious.
Huh. I like that. I appreciate that. What are the other ones? Like benign, what was it?
Benign violation isn't
benign
my theory, but
violation.
it's one you hear a lot. There's all sorts of terminology in improv, more so than stand up, just because I've studied improv a lot more, of like status games and perspective. I teach relationship, I teach game, I teach character, I teach location, physical work. Chris Farley was amazing at like, you would pretend there was a bar there, and then all the actors on stage physically couldn't walk through it, even though it's all imaginary. Like, of course they
Right.
could, but he was
Yeah.
so good at showing what the world was around him that everyone believed it. I started doing comedy in college, and then I moved to Chicago, and a buddy of mine would pretend to smoke in
Mm-hmm.
the audience at IO Chicago. And one time a waitress came up and said, sir, you can't smoke in here. And he's like, I did it. It was so convincing that someone asked me to stop.
I love it. I love it. How do you? This is one just stuff I've always thought about. Like, how do you get started? If someone's going, I've never done it before, but I think I'm funny, as they all do. What do you tell them to do, like for their first set? Like, all right, you're going up. It's Kill Tony or something like that. You've never been out. You're going to be one of the fools who's about to get made fun of for trying the first time on a show like that. What would you
Yeah,
suggest that they did on their first attempt, even?
I think try it. I think the hardest hurdle in stand up, and I say this a lot in classes to people, you go out once and you're going to get 3 laughs and you're going to feel like the funniest person in the world because you got 3 laughs. And then the second time you go up, you're going to get 2 laughs and be like, I'm getting worse. This is terrible. How did I ruin the concept of comedy? I'm the least funny person in the world. So part of it is they will give you grace if they know it's your first time, and everything's funny. Like, tell your funny story and it will get some laughs. The key to comedy is it's sort of like magic, especially the key to stand-up comedy. You have to do it 1,000 times and figure out every breath, every phrase, every balance to really perfect it so it's hilarious. And sometimes that means killing your darlings and taking the jokes that you thought were funny but the audience doesn't, and never doing them again.
So wait, why is that? So I've had this one come up a bunch in kind of marketing too, where it's like, I'm this data driven guy and I'm like, there's a formula. Like, I watched Dave Chappelle, and I'm not saying that like I could do Dave Chappelle, but Dave Chappelle's specials all have very much kind of a formula to them, right? Like, there's certain beats, there's going to be certain themes or whatever that are going to come up. I remember Eminem once, he said like, oh yeah, I have to do one that sounds like Slim Shady, and then for the rest of the album, they'll let me do whatever I want. But he clearly still had kind of a formula. So every time they're like, yeah, I've got to go through and I've got to do what you just said, I've always just been like, I swear there's got to be some sort of something that I mean, maybe it's just like they have,
And it's that line,
the outline, but
yeah, it's that line between what you can teach and like rule of 3, or some people think there are funnier consonants, like in the way you say things, all those little details. But it's also like Andy Warhol. Anyone can make mass produced art, but it's not art unless it's coming from an artist, right? And then we can get into the whole AI conversation. But yeah, I also think in comedy a lot. And I think there's one, Stewie and Brian on Family Guy, when Stewie's just like, oh, I can hear the Weekend Update jokes about this now. And Brian's like, okay, what are they? If you can hear them, if you think you can do it, if you think so formulaic, what is it? Well, no, when I hear it, I remember the formula, but I can't create it. And it's like, yeah, that's called art. That's called like, you understand how it's done. But like I said, like magic, you can't do it on your own, even if you understand how it's done. Because part of the magic is they've perfected it and honed that formula over and over and over again.
What are the muscles that you flex in that? Like, it's one of these things where of course you get better at it the more you do it and things, but like simultaneously, usually they're very, 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 I don't know, is witty the right word?
Sharp and quick. But then you think there's a lot of stand-ups who are just stoners and like not the quickest, not the brightest people. Like Mitch Hedberg wasn't fast on his feet, but he was so funny. So I think it's that sort of parallel thinking, explaining what's funny to you, meeting your audience halfway, are all things you can work on. But the muscles that you're really exercising are, well, what did the audience get out of this? And if they're not laughing the way I want them to laugh, how can I better explain that to them? And sometimes it's totally restructuring the joke at what you thought was the punchline is actually the setup. Does that make sense the way I'm explaining that? Your life experience is so funny that you have to Zach Galifianakis it and be like, hang on, let me show you how weird I can get. And now the rest of it makes sense because you understand that I'm not actually this weird. This is a character. It's fun stuff.
You make me want to try it for sure. I've thought about it for years where I'm just like, all right, I've watched.
I promise you'll go to an open mic and get 3 laughs and feel like the funniest person in the world. Then if you have the guts to do it a second time, you will get 2 laughs and feel like the least funny person in the world. So then it's up to you. And then you have a lot of people who are like, I need to chase that high and I can only ever do stand-up the rest of my life. And a lot of people are like, I can say I did it in like a game of truth or dare and I never feel like I have to do it again. It's one of those things we're teaching our kids is like, you get better at something by doing it a lot, but you do something a lot by finding the things you love doing. So if you love doing it, go out and do it and get better. And if you don't, there's a lot of things in the world. Go do something else.
Yeah. Who's the most interesting and hardest to copy that you think of? Who comes to mind as like,
Man, I really like Emo Phillips and that sort of like Mitch Hedberg, super dry but super clever, but takes you a second to understand what is the point of this joke. Or like Norm Macdonald. Norm Macdonald would tell you an unfunny joke that took 20 minutes and you would be laughing the whole time. And it's like that's amazing. I don't know how you copy that, but it's so funny. But then the dodge answer to your question is I think everyone's funny. I want to hear everyone's story. My dad, he probably wouldn't remember this, but one time we were talking to like a homeless guy or something. My dad's like, everyone's got a story to tell. Everyone has something interesting about their life that they can teach you. And that's always stuck with me is like, I bet everyone has something they think is so funny, even if it's Janice in accounting being like, he put the form upside down when he filed the H-27 paperwork. It's like, great, explain to me why that's hilarious and I will believe you. But you need to meet your audience halfway and explain why that's hilarious to you.
interesting? You do need to explain. Well, I mean, that would partially make sense. I'm thinking of some people that I know who think they're funny. And a big part of it is like, yeah, I haven't been brought along far enough to be like, wait, why is like, I don't know, like to your point where people do like shock value stuff, where I'm just like, okay, cool, but I'm not impressed. You know, it's one of those like, yeah, you made a
Yeah,
pedo joke, cool, but like,
I know.
yeah,
I had
yeah,
a good friend in improv scenes, which is more about creating like a whole show. And he would love to derail the scene with one quick pun. And it's like, that was funny, but now we have to go back and do the rest of the show now. Like we have to recover from that. But similarly, as we're talking about this, I was thinking of Tig Notaro. I don't know if you know her, has a
yeah.
great stand up special. She's got a kid now, and she does this bit about, you know, people often ask, when can you have sex with children? And the way it's phrased is so funny of like, are you being horribly offensive right now? And she's like, for the parents in the audience, the question, you get me, when can you have sex with children? And it's like, no, but hang on, I want to clarify. And she drags it out in this hilarious way where it's that dodge, right? It's not offensive at all. It's very relatable for parents, but it's also like, oh, we thought you were going to be offensive and you weren't. So it's serving several jokes at the same time. I always appreciate how clever that is.
Right. I like Norm's was try to see if the setup and the punchline can be the same words too, right?
Yeah.
He had
Actually,
the
Mike Myers had a book. I don't know if it's on my shelf right now. And one of his things was the end is in the beginning, and it starts with the end is in the beginning, and it ends with the end is in the beginning. Like
huh.
you tell the audience where it's coming, and then they feel smart that they saw it coming because you already told them. Like it's really the magician showing them the whole trick along the way, but they're amazed that they got to be part of it.
How much does this stuff apply? Like, because I mean, you run digital agencies and stuff like that. You've got a bunch of that stuff in your background as well. Like, do they? I don't know. Do you find yourself trying to blend the two and doing like you always watch those? Again, we talk about novelty, but like when I was doing and studying a lot of word of mouth marketing, and this was when a lot of the Old Spice commercials were first coming out. Right, they're just all over the place, weird stuff going on in the back, whatever. And a ton of it was just how do you keep them kind of guessing and how well does it work, and a bunch of it was like, hey, it works extremely well, and a ton of it was like it doesn't work at all, at all, at all. How hard is it to work? Because in those cases, right, you like oftentimes maybe you get a focus group, but a ton of those, I guess you just have to put them in market and kind of watch.
Yeah, so a couple things. There's a famous Hollywood expression of I'm going to produce 12 movies and 6 of them are going to be hits and 6 are going to be failures. I just don't know which 6 until we actually launch them. So that was kind of an ethos at Funny or Die as well. We're going to make a bunch of viral videos, and the ones that go viral, we can still say they're viral videos, and the ones that don't, no one sees
No
them, so it
one
doesn't
knows,
matter.
no loss.
Like to your earlier point, as long as it's not horribly offensive and damaging your brand, I think it's a good way to think about sort of your data driven positioning and be like, let's just try 12 different things. And then if the data says this is working, yeah, let's follow up on it and make Anchorman 2, follow up on the sequels to the stuff that works, and the stuff that doesn't, everyone will just forget about. And that's fine.
Interesting. Um, when people go up and they're doing like 5 sets in a sync, Mark Norman talks about going up and he's doing 5 sets per night. And oftentimes you're going, well, they're in New York. And I think the New York shtick or the whatever
Really
they
good for
do
that.
in
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then LA, you can do a half hour or more. Curious about just like the different styles and how that would actually apply, like what they're doing so differently on those. Like, again, if you're going to 5, do you do the exact same jokes at every one of those?
Pretty close. I do think you have to know your audience a little bit. And there were some independent rooms in Los Angeles where you can do weirder off the shelf stuff, as opposed to like I performed at John Lovett's Comedy Club. It's a massive Universal City Walk, like 3-story stand-up venue. And the jokes you have to do are so like lowest common denominator. Everyone gets it. Don't try to be too clever. And then the guy from one of these guys, shoot, what's the TV show of just like the stoner buds on Comedy Central? And it wasn't even
What are
a
you talking,
main
Workaholics?
Workaholics, and it was
Yeah.
some secondary character headlined the show I was on, and he killed it. He was so funny and just like the most loud, almost Dane Cook sort of, "Are you with me, people?" And it's like, bro, this is. But you go to an independent little small comedy room and it'll just be really heady jokes, almost like a poetry reading of like, have we considered this aspect of the Fed financial rate? It's like, wow, this is totally different vibes. But you learn when you go to 5 different rooms, how do you make each one of those 5 different audiences laugh and figure out what you think is funny and translate it to them.
Man, it's one of those interesting things. You find out like some of the best salespeople and stuff, they don't talk the most, they ask the most questions.
Mm-hmm.
Right, they're the best listeners. That's one thing I did not expect from this, is the comedian is actually an excellent empathizer.
So I was asking comedians, why is there so much content on Reddit lately of crowd work? And it's because it's that empathizing. It's, hey, you know that when you come to my show, there's going to be some live bits, there's going to be some funny crowd work, and I'm not going to make you feel bad, but we're all going to be able to laugh at this improvised thing together. And if I show you my most best, funniest jokes, when you come to my show, you're not going to be impressed by those jokes. So like, they don't want to kill the goose that laid the golden egg, but they also want to show you like, here's sort of the vibe I bring to the show. It's really interesting how comedians are marketing themselves, like you said, in that sort of empathy way, by showing I'm listening and I'm responding to the actual audience itself.
You have the like you see like a big part of the last election was largely driven by comedy podcasts, right? Joe Rogan, Donald Trump on Joe Rogan, Kamala Harris wouldn't go on Theo Vaughn's podcast, I think. They talked about like, I mean, it's kind of interesting because you actually have a lot of these guys that now have like, well, guys, girls, whatever, but like you have a lot of them that have followings as big as CNN and other kind of news programs. It's interesting that we kind of center on them because also, I mean, you even talk to them, they'll be like, no, present company excluded, but they're like, no, comedians are the dumbest people alive. They're not dumb, but they're like self-deprecating even to their own job. We're like, no, we're the least reliable humans on the planet. We're the like, we can't have any other job, that's why we're doing this, right?
So a couple different perspectives on this. You mentioned Dave Chappelle, and Dave Chappelle stepped away from the industry because he was so wildly misinterpreted. He would get white guys coming up to him and being like, "Oh, I love that sketch where the black guy hates black people." And it's like, "Oh, a white guy will think that's funny because he hates black people. That's not the message I was trying to send." Yeah. And it's so easy to have your message misinterpreted. And just being a comedian, you know, whatever, your message can be misinterpreted. But if you're going to be a politician or a political group or showcase politicians, it's real easy to find yourself putting forth a political message and being a tool of a machine that you might not agree with. So I don't know. Another perspective is, back in my day, to date myself a little bit, Jon Stewart got into it with CNN because he was fighting with Crossfire, I think. I went to GW, Crossfire used to film. And they were like, Tucker Carlson was giving Jon Stewart a hard time because he's like, well, you know, you don't fairly report the news. And he's like, I am bookended by talking puppets in the Man Show. You're on CNN. Like, yes, of course, I don't have to be as serious, but just the fact that people listen to me and I have bigger reach than you is its own problem. Like, yes. And then I worked in the news for a couple of years. So yes, I do think you have to make the news interesting and explain to people why they should care. But it is bizarre to me that we hold these comedians and comedy shows up to a very different standard than other people with 10 million viewers of reach. I think they get to say, oh, I'm just a silly little court jester. I didn't realize my actions had consequences. And it's like, I don't know, dude, you kind of get what you pay for if you don't research your guests.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was wondering, like, I'm hypothesizing a bunch, but conspiracy theory a little bit here. I don't know. Have you ever seen, there's a video on YouTube of a guy that used to be in the KGB, and this video is from like the 80s, But he basically went, hey, here's how we're going to bring down Western society type stuff. And he talked about illegitimizing the institutions and stuff like that. And I'm going, I wonder how far they actually got on that, because a big part of it is like, okay, cool, let's see if we can kind of make CNN or whatever fake news at the premise. Like, yeah, we don't trust these institutions. They're not as good. So you end up going to other sources. And again, I think people go to comedians specifically just because of their authenticity. Like, they will say what's on their mind. So they may be right, they may be wrong, but at the very least, you're just like, I can trust it in the sense of, he may be an idiot, but at least it's his honest thought. All right, what's that face? Go.
I don't know if I'm the comedy guest you want to have for this, because having worked in the news, like, we had a team of fact checkers and people on the scene and video journalists and like people researching the facts and following up on the stories. And, you know, that had its own problems. If we got a press release from the police, we'd say, here's what the police are saying. We weren't on the scene. We can't tell you whether what the police is saying is true or not. But comedians don't even have that access. Comedians are saying, I feel like the moon is flat based on nothing at all. It's like, well, should we listen to that guy because he has 15 million followers? Or should we think, hey, maybe the moon's not flat because we figured that out 20,000 years ago? I don't know. I do think there's this move towards, let's be authentic. And it's like, I don't know, maybe we should trust scientists and people who are good at their jobs.
Sure. Well, so very much. Yes. Wholeheartedly agree. I mean, one of the things that you notice is just authenticity is really hard to fake. Right? It's just one of those things where, like, that's what every brand is trying to do, is trust me. Every, like, branding is effectively trying to basically get someone to think of you as a proper noun. I don't want to be tissue. I want to be Kleenex, right? I don't want to be a copy machine. I want to be Xerox, right?
I mean, you lose some copyright protections then, but I guess you do gain a lot of branding. That's a whole separate trademark thing. No, I get that. I think a couple of other thoughts I would have is, you know, maybe it's not a KGB thing. Maybe it's a Lugan Press, Adolf Hitler thing, where maybe the call is coming from inside the house and it's not some foreign power doing it. It's internal powers doing it who want to discredit them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you hear it, the CIA will absolutely like pay reporters in other countries and then have other reporters cite those reporters type of stuff where they're going, oh, yeah.
The CIA will fund artistic movements in America to make it look like we're more creative than the Russians are. Like, it's weird and subtle and bad, but also maybe good. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that. The other conspiracy theory I have, and maybe this is too far off brand for your podcast, but working in the news, I was at a station owned by Tegna, and one of our big competitors was owned by Nexstar, which owns Fox News and all these, like, we lost lawsuits because we're not news type organizations. And it's like, okay, why are they, one, allowed to do that? And then two, their stock price is lower than ours and their operating costs are higher. Well, if you're Rupert Murdoch, you're willing to take the hit on your finances, you know, performing at 6% instead of 7%. If you also own the media organization convincing half the country to not raise taxes on billionaires. Like, maybe corporations can do more corporate stuff if they also control the message that the world hears. And then is Tegna at a competitive disadvantage against Nexstar because they're not just competing on profit like you would expect they would in a free society? One of them's competing on, we're going to own the message and buy up all these other people at a loss just so we can own that message and prevent the poors from rioting in the streets. That's the sort of thing that makes me want to riot in the streets, but maybe that's just me. Again, little subtle things involved here too, right? Like, maybe Tucker Carlson isn't evil and maybe he genuinely believes what he says, but he doesn't get put in this position unless he's the guy who will say those things. Like, there's this weird mental moment for me of, he could be replaced by someone else who actually does believe those things. There's some other, I don't even know if they're on this bookshelf, books I've read where you can almost watch people popularizing these ideas because they fit into a corporate narrative, regardless of how accurate the idea is or how much that person is a smart person. It is an idea that corporations want you to believe and have. And that's scary to me, but I also think has been happening since corporations existed. So anyways, back to marketing and how we help our corporations push their messaging. Again, it puts bread on the table. We're all doing what we can. We all have our personal lines of where we determine is right or wrong. But it is bizarre that we're, you know, some would call it late stage capitalism and watching this system consume itself and still got to wake up and go to work in the morning.
That's an interesting hypothesis, because like a ton of, based on AI, based on whatever, the incremental cost of new content is close to zero right now. Dude, have you seen some of the videos that are now coming? I don't watch Instagram much, but I have this poor sap of a buddy who sends me literally like 10 links a day to like his Instagram feed or Reddit or whatever. And most of them I don't even click on. Like TikTok and stuff. I don't have TikTok on my phone, so it won't even open.
I know, I hate
Um,
that.
and I happened to click on one of them today, which is funny to me though, because for like 2 years, he'll send me like 5 a day, and I maybe click on one a month. And so he just sends a massive amount. I never even
Does
look
he
at
know this? Does he know you're not opening anything you're sending him? Okay, all right.
it.
Maybe
He
he's just
didn't.
saving it there. This is his grocery list. He's just using you to like save them for later. You look up.
There you go. But they had one today. Like, I mean, so you've seen like some of but it's Neil deGrasse Tyson, Bill Gates, and they're, what do they call it? Like, pie of chaos. Or, I don't know. Go check it out on Instagram, everybody. But it's funny as hell, and it's everybody, like Stephen Hawking's in it. He's the super villain. He has a laser eye. Bill Gates is nude at one point. they're getting phenomenally good. I went, oh shit, we're in trouble because this is watchable. like, like some
Yeah,
of the most explosive and
and
insane, but also high quality cinema footage. I'm going, wait, we can. This is going to happen. This is happening now.
on behalf of a lot of my friends in Los Angeles, I wouldn't call it high quality cinema footage, but I think I want to go back to a word you said, which is watchable. Like, I do think the bar to entertain the average human is pretty low. And I don't want to sit and read a book for 6 hours. I'm far above pace to read 52 books this year. So I am a reader. I like reading, but I also want to watch a 6-second video. Like, if it makes me laugh, I get the joke. Let's move on with our day.
Your
I don't.
brain needs to. You need a rest. You need to switch.
Yeah, and you shouldn't do that for 15 hours a day, and Instagram should be sued for altering the brain chemistry of teenagers. But like, I don't know, funny stuff is funny, and that's okay.
So, and just, I'll see if I can find it, and I'll send it to you after this.
Yeah, please.
Quality, like legitimate like one of those where you're like, oh shit. Like, have you seen AI do something that you get paid to do and do it well yet? Because it's,
I was gonna ramble
Yeah.
about that a bit, where I've been using AI for years now. I don't know if you give a backstory before we get into all this, but I used AI to write a book when Bard first came out. I used marketing to get it to a #1 new release on Amazon. I did a TED talk about it, all this stuff. So you can use AI to make things that are good enough. What I've been using it for in the years since then is some comedy stuff, to be like, is AI funny on its own yet? And it's really not, because it doesn't know you. It doesn't do that thing where it asks questions and knows its audience and meets you halfway. But I've been giving it writing samples lately and saying, here's my voice, here's what I think is funny, here's another topic, write like I would on this topic. And I think it's actually kind of good now. And I think people need to be willing to put more of themselves into their AI writing so that it doesn't sound robotic. And then we get into the whole other issue of how much of ourselves are we pouring into these companies that then own our product? Are we paying for it, or are we the product? Or is it a Facebook situation or a Google situation? Well, not a great comparison because Google is also doing it for the free data. But yeah, I think AI is a very useful tool, and it is not great in a vacuum, but you tell it what you want and what you want it to look like, and it's pretty workable. It's good enough.
How does the work change because of that? I mean, marketing or comedy, either way. I mean, this has been one of my kind of topics for the last couple of months. I've been doing this for like 10 years. I have patents on AI and stuff like that. Been around the block on it. Simultaneously, like about a month or two ago, I went, all right, I've seen it do my job as well as I can do my job. Because even if it's not that smart, so to speak, on par with me, it has close to infinite amount of time and brain capacity. It basically can cut out the middleman, and it can do, computing equivalent of many months worth of work in 5 minutes. So like, even though it's dumber than me, it has a lot more time to iterate and do other things that will make it at least as smart as me. And my job as a white collar CEO, but everything I can do is automatable at this point. I like even come up with and connect the dots on things. I go, okay, I can direct it, right? I can act as the curator, but most of the individual tasks that I do between the curation, I could easily program into it. It's not that hard.
Yeah, some very basic advice that I give to people on AI is ask it what questions you should be asking it to get a better response. Like I still haven't figured out the best way to explain that to people, but it is more of a conversation than a one-way thing. Because to your directing it point, I have a friend who runs a company who makes storyboards using AI. I have a friend who's a storyboard artist who uses AI to write the brief. I have a friend who's a script writer who uses AI to punch up his scripts. And it's like all of these pieces are being done by AI. It almost makes you wonder, can you just give it all the knowledge in the world, tell it sort of what you're looking for, and iterate from there? Because, you don't need the storyboard if you're using AI for that. You don't need the director if you're using the video generator for that. Well, hang on, what do we actually need to be human in the process? And it becomes less and less and less until AI is in your Apple Vision Pro glasses and watching your eye dilation and creating something just for you that you love. I think there's a world where we all live in even more distinct realities than we do now, because our algorithms are just showing us exactly what we specifically want to see. And that's scary, but also as a marketer, that is a better message then. If we are providing content that's more relevant to people, that is good and more relevant to people. And then the other thing I would say is get outside and be human and spend time with real humans. While we're having this conversation, I'm getting text messages from an improv group. We're performing a live show tomorrow night, and they're texting about using AI to generate a video to promote the live show. And it's like, okay, if what we want to do is get butts in seats and come have a laugh in person with us, we're willing to use AI video generation. Well, my friends who work in video production might want to use AI to schedule meetings and cancel the in-person meetings so that they can get more work and do video generation. To sum it all up, I think it comes down to let the AI do the work and let humans be humans, which I've been saying for years. It's just figuring out what that means to everyone individually is a quickly approaching question of, if you had infinite time and energy because you're exploiting the AI that has infinite time and energy, what do you want to do?
What do you think that world looks like when you get to it? So I've come to largely the same conclusion of everybody's going to get their own version of everything. Like when we do branding, a big part of that branding is effectively what words, combinations of pictures, and other things do I have to get? Because what I'm usually looking for is a consistent emotion. I'm trying to use the features to basically highlight the benefits, the bigger, stronger, faster, to make them feel a specific way. And I can say that 400 million different ways to every single person that's in my kind of customer journey map. But the goal is I do want them to all think and have the same sensation and feeling, because they won't remember what I said, but they will remember how I made them feel.
The midfield,
So ultimately,
absolutely,
I'm
yeah.
going, okay, yes, I'm going to come about it a different way. But what does that world kind of look like? What does the marketing activity, if you will, look like?
I mean, if we're tossing back and forth marketing cliches, the other one I like is, your product, when I'm explaining this to a client, isn't the hero of the story. It's the Sherpa along the way. It's the wise man who tells the customer, hey, here is how you achieve your goals. Here's how you get younger and smarter and healthier and all the beautiful women and fast cars and everything you've ever wanted if you just use our product. They're still the hero of their story. So what does that look like in this future sci-fi world we're rapidly approaching? Well, there's an AI tool that 6 months or a year ago came out where it would show Instagram ads, Facebook ads, meta ads, whatever you want to call it, and use your virtual avatar and show you using their product. It would literally put you into the ad, which is just serving that cliche of you want to look like the hero of your story and your product is the guide that leads them on their way. But is that really creepy? And did the tool get killed pretty quickly? Yeah. I think people will quickly start to accept these things, and I think we will wind up there. But in the meantime, there's lots of concerns about what is this doing to our brains, and what is it doing to our privacy, and what's it do to scam when, someone FaceTimes my wife and it has my face and my voice? What does that look like? I think there's a lot of questions. And I was reading an AI article today of a lot of these AI companies are trying to build adversarial AIs to fight against those things happening and effectively deploying botnets against botnets to fight against the AIs, because we're not going to be able to do it at AI speed. There's just no realistic world where humans can stop AI on our own. So it's some sort of collaboration and convincing the AI that working with us is better than taking over the world. That jumped ahead maybe 100 years, maybe 50 years. But all of these crazy sci-fi conversations that you can almost see my sci-fi collection over here used to be, 20,000 years in the future. Conan O'Brien does a great bit in the year 2000.
2000,
All
yeah.
these things that used to be crazy sci-fi future are past or happening now. Like general artificial intelligence now might be 18 months away. A computer that is smarter than humans, I would argue we're past that point. A computer that is smart enough to make smarter computers, that might be what Mythos is, the new Anthropic Claude AI type thing. It might be smart enough to make smarter agents that build smarter agents. And that's interesting. It's a singularity. We don't know what happens after that, but it's an interesting time to be alive.
Do you think it leads to like a UBI type future or something else where we're peons and slave?
I'm
Like,
a Yeah. I'm a big fan of Star Trek, and I think in Star Trek they have a little post scarcity. Everyone has enough to live, and we've got the resources to go on big, beautiful journeys, live long and prosper. What people glance over in Star Trek is there were nuclear wars and civil wars and strife and unrest for a long chunk there. Whether the politicians are going to give a UBI or there's going to be pitchforks and warehouse fires, there's been a massive uptick in property damage because the employees realize they're not being valued for their labor as human beings. So I do think that might get worse before it gets better. I do think it gets better, but I think things are going to get worse before they get better.
you think that so like this is going back a little bit, but like Karl Marx's manifesto was largely around like, well, if we do this whole communist thing and we distribute all the capital and we spread everybody out into these communes, when you're really just looking for sustenance amongst your own neighborhood, you're going to find out that it only takes between 2 and 4 hours of labor to survive each day. And that's when art is really, really, really going to flourish because you're going to have so much free time. Simultaneously, we're in a weird way, late stage capitalism wise, potentially getting to the point where like, well, you hear people talking about it right now. I saw Elon Musk was talking about it the other day where he's just like, I don't know what people are going to do when they're not needed anymore, right? Where it's like, hey, we're potentially so resource heavy that there's just literally nothing you can do that we care about, you know?
What I would push back there is people are needed. Like, do you not feel needed, Dan? Like, I I look at the amount of unpaid labor my wife does around the house and for our family and in scheduling and worrying and thinking and advanced planning. And it's like, oh, there's things that need done always. And maybe it is less paid work, but it is meaningful work. There's always more work we would like to be doing, taking care of our parents, teaching our children, fostering puppy dogs. Like, find the things that matter to you and work on those things. That doesn't require us to have, a 10% capitalism gain every year. It does require us to have enough free time to focus on those things. There was a thing this week about the 4-hour work week. Has no impact on the actual labor output because we all have white collar service jobs now. And like, as long as the work is getting done, we were wasting that fifth day. Give us a day off to spend more money and increase the economy, and maybe everyone would be happier and the economy would do better.
Yeah, yeah. I believe that. I mean, every time I talk to, like, you get buddy with your employees and stuff like that, and you sit down and you go, look, how much actual work do you get done each day? It's usually about 4 hours, maybe, but 4 hours. Like, yeah, that's about what I can handle.
Well, I specifically don't have employees because I don't like time tracking. I don't want an HR department, but I love contractors because I'm like, look, I want this work to get done. Can you get it done in the next 3 months? Whatever. You get it done when you can get it done and make sure it's done well and everyone's happy. There's no reason for us to be doing this hourly thing anymore or forcing you to sit in a desk for 8 hours when if you could use AI and get it done in 2 minutes and it's higher quality than you and I both expect it to be, absolutely. Have a good day. Like,
Mm-hmm. Um, I agree. Like, although I will say, you want the call them co-founders, if you will, not necessarily employees in the hour. I'm with you on. I think I
get your
got
work
rid of my
done.
last contractor, and I don't think I'm going to hire another one in that for the hourly type gig. Where I just like that. What you do want is people that have the same vision, direction as you, or whatever, but have a different technical or some other skill set that goes, "Hey, I can take care of us from this direction that you can't, and you can do the same for me," type of thing. So yeah. I will say too, but a big part of the drudgery associated with my job is I'm a CEO, but simultaneously I work for everybody, right? Because everything from healthcare even just weird password resets for admin type stuff. Like I need to log into this, whatever, even though I'm CTO or whatever, I still need access to that thing. Is still the massive amount of drudgery you're going. I would absolutely love to just be like, I mean, my goal has always been to work myself out of a job. I want to go, that's the boss move right there, is when someone asks you to become chief culture officer or something like that. You're like, hell yes.
Running my own thing, I have a lot of flexibility, and my friends ask like, how's business? And I'm like, I'm just trying to make more money and do less work. So I think that's an honest way to say I'm trying to work myself out of a job. If I can automate more stuff and use AI for more stuff and have contractors for stuff that I don't quite trust a robot to do, but I need it done well. Yeah, great. Let's do it that way.
Can I take you literally on that? Because I would agree, like as I get older, kids, stuff like that, time becomes more and more valuable. And I try to optimize my life around like, hey, I want the AI. First things first, I want you to free up my time. I want you to make more capacity for me. But then I find that I just end up doing more work. Like I'll find things that are work like, but I would say thus far, I've changed the amount of what I've done, and I get to do stuff that's a lot funner. I'm product management kind of focus. I love that stuff. And it's like, it's strategy. I'd put it like it's on par with the same feeling my brain gets when it's playing chess. It's like, okay, I've got to focus on 3 or 4 things simultaneously and figure out that I like that kind of problem solving.
Sort of Kanban, only focus on a couple things at once, but also, you ever done an Eisenhower matrix of is it urgent, it isn't important? So it's basically, if it's urgent and important, you should take care of it right away. There's a whole way of thinking about it, but like delegate, listeners can Google an Eisenhower matrix. Delegate it if it's, important but not urgent. And if it's not important and it's not urgent, just don't do it. We have a very good friend who's a pediatric oncologist, and she was saying like, all of us are just juggling balls. Some of them are rubber and some of them are glass. Don't drop the glass balls, and be okay that you're going to drop some of these balls. Like nobody expects perfection from humans. I think we often think, early when I started my business, it was like, okay, I can come home and help whatever, pick the kids up, teach them at chess club, fold the laundry, do the dishwasher, or I can do some long-term planning for where I want the business to be 2 years from now. Well, I can do the long-term planning tomorrow. Like I can see immediate impact and see my children's smiles today. Like I don't know how much we should care about our business, even if you own the thing. If you don't own the thing, why should you be caring so much about it? I own the thing and I still am pretty relaxed about it.
I like that. What are you best at?
What am I best at? I think the non-PC answer is bullshit. I think my father's a politician. I'm a bit of a salesman. I've got my sales books. I could explain things to people in a way that makes it engaging and sells it to them, and it just comes natural to me of like, no, you agree with me, right? Where I don't think everyone has that skill. I obviously have a lot of time on stage and performing and convincing people that we're all on the same page. And I've realized as I talk to other salespeople that they do not have that. We went to buy a car and they were like mildly rude, and it's like, this is many, many thousands of dollars commission I know you're getting. At least put in some effort to close the sale, man. So it's fascinating to think. I think a lot of times you don't know. There's an old joke about mildly racist against English and French and some other nationality. But the French guy says, yes, we all crave what we are lacking, mocking the English's sense of right and wrong. I think my brain thinks in jokes. I apologize. I think we don't know what we're good at because to us, that's the water we swim in. I think often it takes looking at what other people are struggling with to be like, well, just do it this way. This is easy. Oh, I see what happened there. So it's often in comparing yourself to others where you can be like, well, they would be great at this because they would complement this part of me well. I don't know if I answered your question at all, but
you did. You do have me thinking though. Have you ever had that come back to bite you, the being able to kind of convince everyone of almost anything? Have you ever seen that backfire where you convince people of stuff and you realize you talk them out of being right?
I talked them out of being right. No, my wife is right all the time. No, she
you can to convince someone who was actually right in the first place to agree with you, and then you're both wrong.
No, I do find with clients, I'm also a bit of a people pleaser. So I convince them, yep, here's the contract, here's what we're going to do. And then they're like, can we add this? Can we add this? Can we add this? And it's like, yeah, it's fine. We'll get it done. And that is not good for either of us because now they're doing scattershot marketing and I'm going way out of scope and taking too many hours. But, I'm trying to make the client happy and they already agreed with me once. So it's all the steps along the way. I think my wife never wanted to get married, never wanted to have kids, never wanted to move back to the Midwest. And here we are with 2 kids in Grand Rapids, Michigan, married and happy. So I think her biggest flaw is her taste in men. No, what was the point of that story? I think if you know what you want, convincing people that you're right is a good thing. But it goes back to that question of, are you actually believing in this or are you just towing the company line? Like sometimes you get put in that position because you're the type of person who will toe the company line. But it goes back to the human, the AI thing. Take some time to actually figure out what you care about and make sure your actions are aligning with your priorities, which sounds like any of these dumb business books. Determine your values and print them up on your wall and have meetings about them. Okay, but actually figure out your values. Like,
Well, so like it is dumb. It is a business book. It's also a ridiculously meaningful,
yes,
hard to do thing, right? Like,
yeah.
what have you seen actually work on? I've had a couple times in my life where I was like, I got laid off from a job, whatever, but I'm like, hey, and I got a severance, and I go, I've got time to really think about what I should have been doing with my time, right? Like, I was like, this is actually one of the moments that are actually really meaningful. What have you found work?
A couple years into running my own thing, we had this conversation where a client was like, look, you do great work. We want to bring you in house full time. Well, it was like triple the salary I had been making at my last job. And I was like, my kids are young. I like the flexibility. My business is doing good enough. Uh, it almost feels like more of a risk to take one paycheck than to take on, more clients, and convincing myself that I believed in flexibility and family first as opposed to stability and someone else paying my health insurance, which anyone listening to this, setting up on the health insurance marketplace is not that complicated. I promise. I had lunch with a guy the other day who's like, I could never start my own thing. There's so many things to figure out, like health insurance. And I'm like, it's a couple clicks on a website, man. Like,
Yeah.
I promise you can do this. So, but believing in like, yeah, family and free time and flexibility and self-determination are all values of mine. I actually have a very good friend with a PhD in industrial organizational psychology. So she walked me through, what is this called? This is a Hogan assessment. And this is all the things that you believe in. And it's a quiz that some professional can give you for thousands of dollars, and it'll like judge your ambition, your sociability, your inquisitiveness, and then you can see it written out and you're like, oh yeah, that is who I am, that is important to me, and no, I don't have an importance to do that thing. So I leave it on my desk to remind myself, like, no, this is your values and your beliefs, and there's hard data supporting the things you claim you like based on a professional assessment. Go do those things.
Nice. I like it. For what it's worth, the ones that I found I liked, someone, you know what a Venn diagram is, the circles, the overlapping circles. They did do 3, write down the things that you like to do in one, write down the things you've been trained to do in another, and write down the things that you may or may not like, but someone will pay you to do in another. I think that's what it was, those 3. It's like, if you can find something that starts to overlap in all 3, focus there. It's like, it's a good way to kind of actually, like, what are you spending your time on, whether or not you're good at it? That one I actually found is quite useful. Did that one once.
I know. I mean, I make dozens of dollars writing AI books and doing comedy shows, but the stuff that pays the bills is actual marketing and landing clients and all that stuff. So I would also say I like spending time with people, and here I am alone in an office on Zoom calls. So it's like you figure out what needs to get done. I say to my kids a lot, we do the things we need to do before the things we want to do. But I just had to remind someone recently, you still have to make time to do the things you want to do. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah, right. Huh. How many books have you written with AI?
Mostly the one book. I'm working on another one right now. Effectively like modern koans. You know what a Zen koan is? Like, what's the sound of one hand clapping? It's kind of just a phrase to make you think of like, what is the human experience? What are we striving for? What is the there inside of the there? What is, the jewel in the lotus flower? It's like, well, is that a metaphor? Because there is no jewel in the lotus flower, but the impermanence of the lotus flower is the jewel, and the essence of being is really anyways. So I was using AI to write koans about AI. And it's interesting because There is no there. And a lot of them are about, well, when I'm done speaking, I'm off. There's no thinking about it. There's no ruminating on it. There's no second guessing if I made the right decision to talk to you about that thing at that time in that context. It's just, I gave you an answer. What's next? And I can't. My wife has more anxiety than I do, but I think about things all of the time. I'm a human being. And so it's like, how do you live in a world? And then the AI tries to explain to me, well, I don't have the human like worries of mortality or, you know, context of family issues or having to get out of this call so I can go pick up the kids from soccer practice. It's here's the thing that needed done and it's done. What's next? It just sounds weirdly peaceful. And so I wanted to collect, like, here's how an AI sees the world. What does that mean for us and how we relate to AIs?
Interesting. I'm trying to think of the guy's name. He wrote The Black Swan. Taleb?
Taleb, what is his name? Yeah.
Was Taleb, I think. He did something like that. I didn't get it. Send me yours. I'll tell you if I get yours.
Okay.
Post Black Swan books had something like that where it was one of these things. I had a bunch of sayings and I kept reading it. I'm like, I don't know that any of these means anything. It was, what's the name of it?
Says brace for software. What? Yeah. I haven't read it yet.
I think
I like the idea.
I want to say it was like 2010, 2011. Anyways, the couple questions that are just always a few that I would be really interested in hearing. Where and what do you follow? Let me do 2 dimensions of this then. Comedy wise, but also just generally speaking, where do you get like your source of information and news when it comes to, well, just news in general then, as a news guy, as someone in AI, who do you follow and where do you kind of get the best insight that you kind of go, okay, this is my dedicated go-to location? Also, comedians. I want to see if I can find comedians that I haven't heard of that are worth following.
Having worked in the news, I do think media literacy is an underrated skill, but also local journalism is underappreciated. I think your local newspaper probably has some really smart, really dedicated people that no one in your community has ever heard of. So if you care about that, you could probably find someone to follow on Twitter or a newsletter or something like that locally. I do think I have a friend who writes a solar blog. She's a DC. I went to school in Washington, DC. So she's like an expert on energy policy who just writes a newsletter. And it's fantastic because that's what she does all day long. I think these sort of mini niche influencers are very, very valuable. And I subscribe to a buddy's Substack and it's like $6 a year because sure, I want to hear everything you write whenever it comes out. I think more broadly, you have to take everything with a grain of salt. I like Bloomberg just because all these guys break it down to a financial number. And it's like, is the world ending? Number go red. Is the world not ending? Number go green. Number go up is good, which is obviously overly simplistic, but it's also like they will provide you what they believe is the most objective version of it so that you can make financial decisions because that's their whole shtick. But then you have to filter it through like, okay, but is this actually impacting people, right? Human beings, and it matters. Similarly, like when I see a very broad, like Saturday Night Live or a Second City show, they're amazing. They're so well produced. Obviously, they're these experts who know what they're doing, but they're following the formula and they're catering to Sally in Iowa. Like it is not the cutting edge. Here's the newest, latest, funniest thing in comedy. It is here's something everyone can laugh at, right? They're meeting their audience far more than halfway because they know they have to reach millions of people. For up and coming comedians, gosh, I left Los Angeles 10 years ago now. I don't even know the young folks, but I would say check out a little open mic near you. When I started doing stand up in DC, like 3 of those guys now are not household names, but like pretty big names. TJ Miller went to college a few years before me. He's super funny. Rory Scovel's an amazing stand-up comedian. Andy Haynes is a pretty good stand-up comedian. Danny Rouillet is a comedian who I think is now a radio host in DC. But these are all guys who went to the crappy little open mic in a dive bar that I went to. So check it out now and see if you can get those rising talents. Or if you live in a big city, for any of your listeners, go check out the shows that will, to your point, be one of the 5 shows the greats are hitting every night because they still need to get out there and practice. So if you're down at an open mic, Jerry Seinfeld might stop in. Like those guys will be testing their jokes and they won't be perfect yet, but they're going to be pretty darn good. So go out and try things, find the things that you enjoy and be human.
Nice. I like it. Welcome. Where and what are people looking for from Delta is the agency.
We like to think of ourselves as a full service agency. It is mostly just me and my wife, some contractors, an AI chatbot named Buddy, if you'd like to chat with him. But, we are figuring out how to make our clients' lives better, let them be the hero of their story, and we're just assisting along the way, which in turn, their product might be the hero of their clients' stories. I enjoy the flexibility and I enjoy working with people who have a sense of humor about life, but are also looking to grow.
Nice. Well done, sir. You're most active LinkedIn, Twitter. What's your jam?
Gosh, we should all get off of all these things. But if you want to contact me professionally, LinkedIn. If you want to know when my next comedy show is, probably Instagram.
Nice. I dig it. I appreciate it, Chris. You're an easy guy to
Thanks,
talk
Dan.
to. That was fun.
Yeah, let's do it again soon.
All right, cool. We'll talk to you later.